Okay, the first question will go to Renee Compion. And the first opening statement will go to Renee Compion. And you'll have 1 minute.
Hello, everyone. My name is Renee Compion. I've been in San Marcos since 1992. My family's bloodline has been here since 1899. I really love San Marcos. I want to see San Marcos grow. I want to see San Marcos stay San Marcos. I'm a veteran. I'm a single parent. My boys, I've raised them since they were 1 and 2. They're now 31 and 30. I'm quite proud of them. I've worked for HEB for 23 years. I'm a manager, and I'm quite proud of that too. So I'm very business oriented. And hopefully, you'll give me your vote.
I would like to thank the I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this debate this evening and publishing the Voters Guide. And thanks to the audience for attending this evening. I am Lisa Pruitt, and I currently hold place 1 on the City Council. I'm a small business owner and have resided in San Marcos for 23 years. I have 4 children who have attended the San Marcos schools, as well as a couple that have attended Texas State University. There are many important issues facing the community. How we manage our growth has been and will continue to have the largest impact on our community in the years to come. Wherever that growth goes, we must ensure that there is sufficient infrastructure to handle it, and if not, that the cost is not burdened solely upon the city and our taxpayers. We have to ensure that new growth is compatible with existing developments and that it also is respectful to our environmental constraints. Quality job growth is coming to San Marcos, and we will continue working together with our economic development team to attract those jobs that San Marcos residents need. During my past 3 years on council, we worked together to bring 1,400 new jobs to San Marcos.
And now we'll start with questions. Starting with Renee. What is the most important issue you will address should you be elected to the City Council?
That's a great question. It's going to depend on what's the most important need that we have at the time when I'm voting into City Council.
Well, our most immediate need right now for our community is going to be disaster recovery. We're still working through our CDBG funding, which is going to make a huge impact on many of our residents. The land development code that we will start adopting in the spring is going to guide our growth in San Marcos for decades to come. Transportation issues are going to be on the top of that list for me. I think that transportation is connected to affordable housing, is connected to quality of life, is connected to housing choices, and so many more things. Apart from the land development code, disaster relief, transportation, we have to start to look at our river systems. You know, our river systems are becoming overcrowded right now. Do we need to start to purchase more land along the rivers so we can alleviate some of those pressures in our park systems? And how do we manage that growth on the park? With a very limited budget in San Marcos, we need more park rangers, we need more cleanup crews, so those are some things we'll be looking at.
30 seconds for rebuttal.
She's right. We do need a better infrastructure. We do need better area for our rivers. We do need to keep some of our areas we have in the river for our people, especially the people who live here. Like repairing Kate's Dam. It needs to be repaired, not taken out. It's part of a historical viewing. So there's a lot of different things that's needed for the city, and once upon being voted in, I will definitely look at them and confront them.
Thank you. Second question. How should the city fund the expansion of services to meet the needs of San Marcos's growing population?
Well, if we do it right, the growth itself will bring in the tax base that will fund the services needed for the city of San Marcos. And I think that's one thing that we consistently do on the council right now is when growth comes in, we look at what that's going to cost the city. What will it cost us to fix that intersection to be able to handle that growth? What's it going to cost our river systems? I think that's been a conversation that hasn't been taken serious enough on council over the last decade, and we found ourselves in a position now that we don't have sufficient funding. We need new facilities in San Marcos, which we're moving forward right now with electing a bond committee, or committee to at least look at what those facilities are that we need, what they're going to cost the community, and which ones are the highest priority. So we just need to make sure that growth pays for itself, and we're not subsidizing growth. It comes in when we have economic development with jobs. We have a policy now that unless those jobs are paying $15 or more, we are not going to give economic incentives because we cannot double subsidize any longer in San Marcos.
How should the city fund the expansion of services to meet the needs of San Marcos's growing population?
Well, for one, they're trying to build certain places over on the south side. They're trying to build some more student housing. But foremost, we need to look at our people here in the community. They need housing themselves. So we definitely need to look at that to see how we can help everybody, how we can help the infrastructure. And yeah, if we're going to have to build some better intersections or better lights or better ways of getting around, we're just going to have to look at that and get down to it.
I don't really have a rebuttal on that, but I will say that as we start to bring more growth with better paying jobs in San Marcos, and we start to open up housing options and choices, we'll start to see people who are working in San Marcos start choosing to live in San Marcos, put their children in our school districts, and we will start to see an increase in property taxes. I think too many people live in other communities now that live here because we don't. They live in other communities that work here if there are jobs because we don't have the housing that we need. So we need to increase that housing market as well.
The next question is, what changes will the adoption of Code SMTX, the proposed rewrite of the city's land development code, have on growth and development within the city?
On that, I'm going to have to tell you the truth. I'm not sure about that. So I'm going to have to give this to her. She has the experience on me on that one.
So the impact the land development code will have on growth in the city is going to be very clear. What I hope that when the code is adopted, it's going to create predictability for people who want to come and invest in San Marcos. For the past years, we've had people come in that have invested in our city that have been putting things here that aren't quite compatible with what our community sees as what they want to be. And I think that that's going to be one of the big positives of the land development code. It's also going to, as many of you went to neighborhood character studies, to talk about what you want your neighborhoods to look like. Hopefully, by the time we finish adopting this, people will have some choice housing in the neighborhood. They'll have some mixed use, or they won't. It will depend on what they want to have where they live. I hope that we have transportation options more available. We've recently given policy that whenever we have big employment centers, box stores, dense student housing, that we need to have mobility hubs placed everywhere. So not only are we waiting for the land development code to come through, we are doing stopgaps as we go through this process to try to take care of some issues first.
Mr. Combian, 30 seconds.
On that note, I will do my best to not raise taxes. We've been doing that a lot, but yet we haven't been doing anything about increasing or bettering our infrastructure. So let's find out a program first that does work, and if in fact we have to raise taxes, then we can explain to the people why. And hopefully they'll agree.
Ms. Pruitt, the next question goes to you. What does the phrase growth while preserving the community mean to you?
Growth while preserving the community. I think there's many different very diverse cultural neighborhoods in San Marcos, and each one of them identify different people who live here. Some of them have been here for decades, like Mr. Compagnon, or for generations. Some people came to school here and fell in love with San Marcos. And what was the question again? I got off on it a little bit. Sorry about that.
What does the
Oh, thank you.
growth while preserving the community mean to you?
So I think that's one of the attributes that San Marcos has is our cultural diversity. And I want to make sure that we maintain our single-family neighborhoods because that directly affects our education system, our schools. People tend to move down to New Braunfels or up to Kyle when they get ready to put their kids in schools because they're afraid of what compatibility might be coming in next to them. But we also need to be able to have a strong enough code to allow our residents to have confidence in the government that they will have protection of their neighborhood so we can get that choice housing, townhomes, some smaller lots built with more dense housing. And right now that's been very difficult to do because of some of the developments we've had in San Marcos.
Mr. Campion, same question.
I believe that the developers that are coming in here in San Marcos and wanting to build communities for us, household, student living, companies to come sell, that they're trying to write their own code. Some of them have. We need to stop that. We need to tell them, hey, this is San Marcos, this is what the rules are. You don't like that? Well, let's go back to the discussion line. We'll work this out. But you're not going to come tell us how to run our town.
30 seconds.
Well, I see that a little bit different. If we don't have development, if we don't have developers coming to San Marcos, then we don't grow. And I think that we have to have a friendship with them. That's when I said before that predictability is the number one thing. If they know who you are, how you want to develop, what your community is about, then when they come here, they're not going to try to get their votes on something. And that's kind of what's been happening in San Marcos over the years. They put something in because they know they have 4 votes for it. They don't put it in because they know that this community is going to stand by what our development codes are, who we are, and what we want in San Marcos. And the sooner that we start to do that, then I think the developers that are the right developers for San Marcos will come here. And developers are our friends, and they should be. We should be able to communicate to them what we need, where we want it, how we want it, and it should be done in a very friendly, nice way.
We have time now for audience questions. When you step forward to ask a question, please identify yourself. You'll be given 30 seconds for the question, and each candidate will be given 1 minute to answer. Sometimes the questions are directed at just one person. So we'll work with that.
Does this work? Oh, hey, my name is Ben Quanley, and I'm here to ask just, since, Lisa, you've been on council, one of your buddies has gotten $500,000 a year from the city, and then again, you gave him a contract to ask about a recreation study on the river for an additional $10,000. Explain to me why that's ethical.
First of all, could you explain to me who my buddy is? Because I don't have many buddies that get $500,000 a year, to tell you the truth.
Well, it's Tom Hardy.
Okay, well, number one, I wasn't aware that anybody gave him $500 million or $500,000. That's news to me. And what was the rest of your question?
How is it ethical to give him a study of recreation on the river when there are clearly better candidates for studying such a thing?
Well, Mr. Hardy has been studying the San Marcos River for at least 10 years, and he studied mostly the backflow effect. He has been studying wild rice and endangered species in San Marcos for 10 years. He was asked to give his interpretation and recommendation on how the dam removal, which is what you're talking about, would affect recreation. And I think what a lot of people need to understand is Mr. Hardy is a very well-respected scientist. We asked him to do studies for us, and then that information was given to the council, and then we had to make a decision. So I do claim Dr. Hardy to be my friend. I have been relying on him for information for a good 5 years on watersheds. When I first started getting involved in politics, he was kind of my go-to guy. So I highly respect Mr. Hardy and Dr. Hardy. And I don't know any of the monetary issues you're talking about.
Any other questions from the audience?
My name is Joe Castillo. One of your previous questions was about the keeping, San Marcos, the neighborhoods, what San Marcos is known for
Yes.
versus, but the big thing that's changed over the past years is back-end parking downtown.
Right.
I mean, to me, it kind of discourages people from coming downtown because not everybody has the capability to, or just, they're just not experienced enough in back-end parking. So to me, adding that has kind of deterred tourism downtown. What is your position of removing that and going back to the regular parking that we had before all that construction took place?
So personally, I don't mind back-end parking. I drive a truck and a trailer and I back that thing in everywhere in town. But there has been a huge outcry from this community that they do not want back-end parking. So actually this year on council, me and my colleagues, a couple of my colleagues actually brought it to the agenda to try to remove it. And it did not, the removal did not pass. It did not get enough votes on council to do so. I will continue to not support back-end parking. I think we have enough agitation in our community as we grow as rapidly as we are, and we have a lot of bigger fish to fry, and I think back-end parking could be one thorn in someone's side to just remove. I don't think it's that necessary. I personally don't see how it makes bikes passage safer. You still have to cross that line to back in and back out. So personally me, I'm fine with removing back-end parking.
Howdy, my name is Dan Lyon, and I would like to ask Ms. Pruitt, did you say that code SMTX came from people in San Marcos, or was it brought to
So the new land development code, we do have consultants that are helping us with it. So the land development code is reflective of the comprehensive plan that we adopted several years ago. So the land development code now is going to the code SMTX, and it has a task force committee that meets. It's a very diversified committee of members on it. Anywhere just from your typical resident in San Marcos to developers. Because in order for that land development code to get pushed through and have buy-in from all of our community, including the developers, we need to have the conversation with everybody. So I've seen pieces of it. There's some of it I don't like, but a lot of it I do like, and I think a lot of it does reflect what this community wants. Now, we will be reading through that for several months. The time period for citizens or to comment on it ended about a week ago, and there's a lot of comments that have come in, and there's going to be some adjustments still made to what will be coming forward to planning and zoning and city council. And then we'll be flushing out some of those concerns. And I'm sure it's going to be a very lengthy process. And I hope that citizens in San Marcos will stay engaged. And please come to us as soon as you see pieces of it that bother you, that worry you. And let's work through them together. I think that's one of the biggest challenges in our community is sometimes people feel like things get to the dais way quicker than they should. And so we need to get those conversations going before they get to city council.
Let me just follow up. How is this going to affect individual property rights, for the owner of the property in San Marcos?
Well, it's not going to have any zoning changes in it. So it should not affect individual property rights. There's going to be an introduction to different types of housing uses throughout our community, but a lot of those are going to be reflective on neighborhood character studies. And a lot of those things we won't adopt until we get buy-in from the neighborhoods that would like to see some changes or not. So I will be personally very respectful of our community and where they live and what they want.
Mr. Compion, do you have comments on the questions that have been asked, either about the back-end parking and some of the development?
Back-end parking, I wasn't for. Back-end parking, the people weren't for, but the city council did it anyway. It's funny how she says she's for changing it now. Now it's time to be reelected. So let's do the right thing. If we don't want it, let's tell us, so we can change it. When she talks about, that's what that gentleman was talking about, there was a lot of it that we need to do town hall meetings and talk, just like we're in this room right now. What are your concerns? How can we work this out? Because this is what we have in front of us at the table. Okay, let's work it out so we're all happy. And you're all happy with us. But I promise you, again, I've said this before and I'll say it again, I will not walk out on a boat.
Thank you. Is that it on audience questions? Okay, last one.
Okay. Hi, my name is Kurt Waldhauser. My question.
Could you speak into the...
Come again? Okay. My name is Kurt Waldhauser. I'm a resident here. My curiosity is since the historic floods last year, where we saw this catastrophic flooding in the watershed of the river systems in town, and it seems, based on the science, that the increase in impervious cover in the watershed it greatly contributed to the flooding.
Your question?
My question is, have the comprehensive plan from 5 years ago or so that the city is planning its development around, has there been any reconsideration of that plan? Because that plan specifies increasing density within the watershed, which would increase impervious cover, which would increase flooding. So has there been a reconsideration of the plan of moving the actual density outside of the watershed?
Thank you.
Okay, so a plan to move development away from the watershed. So the Meadow Center has been working on a water quality protection plan and a watershed protection plan now for 3 or 4 years. The council has just adopted the policy. And what will happen is that policy, I hope, will be adopted or put into the land development code by the council, which will look at things just like you're talking about. Look at cumulative effects of density, of impervious cover, not just looking at one new development, but looking at all the adjacent developments around it, not just what's there, but what can go there. So we have really been pushing that envelope the last 2 years. The flooding that we had 15, 18 months ago was horrible. It was disastrous. Unfortunately, that was a little bit different. It was a huge flood, and there was also development there that had caused some of that flooding in some of the backwashing into that neighborhood, which was determined afterwards. But your concern is our concern, and we understand that as watersheds get developed out, that we will see an increase. We're looking at floodplain management right now. We have recommendation from FEMA to do an 18 floodplain elevation. We're looking at maybe 24-inch floodplain elevation. So we are looking at all that.
You heard her say that part of that was part of a development. Well, who approved that development? They didn't just come say, we're going to build this. And the other thing, that development, how are you going to blend that development when that community that flooded very badly, all those homes, you know they're on a floodplain? You could have had a 100-foot wall and that water was coming over anyway. And if you can go down any one of those blocks, out of that whole community, you're going to find one storm drain. I've been down there. So where are the rest of them? Why did the city, when they, back in the day, not this city council, we weren't here, but why did the city back in the day build that community without proper drainage? You want to blame the development? Go for it. The city's the one who told them you can build this. The engineers of the city said, sure, do this, yeah, you're good. The permit office of the city said, go for it. You still want to build that development? Blame them. Let's get real. I'm not trying to blame city council. Was there a problem there? Sure. Did we think about that? No. We need to.
I think we have time for one more.
Thank you. Really quickly, this question is for each panel when they come up, but I wanted to ask it now instead of later, because I'd like for each group to consider this question. At the end of the day, after November 8th, there will be one winner for each of these seats. Will the ones who have not been chosen to serve in these capacities, will you get behind the one who is chosen and support and build and make San Marcos better?
Yes, ma'am. Like I said, I'm about San Marcos, wanting to be San Marcos. If she's to be the winner, then so be it. But if I'm to be the winner, so be it. And I would hope that she would help me impact me.
The answer to your question is yes. I'm all in with San Marcos, and I think that the closer we communicate with our elected officials, one way or the other, we all bring something very special to the table of every conversation. It's just not a city council member. We rely on the initiatives of our entire community, and that's the only way that we're going to get things done is by communication.
Thank you. And this concludes this part of the debate.